remember, you can watch the video in Edmodo whenever you want. Okay, yes, and Francisco is telling me that the last class we saw about errors, about their role and types of errors. Yes, okay, so what do you remember about errors? What are some of these types? What we were talking about, Francisco? What do you remember about errors? Or you, Caroline, maybe you didn't attend the class, but you know about this topic, right? Maybe you have heard about this topic in the university, at college, I don't know. So how much do you know about errors? No? Nobody? Okay, I'm waiting, don't worry. Yes, okay, different types of errors. Yes, that's right, Francisco. Do you remember their names? Very good. We have some slides. Fossilization is not a slice. This is like kind of a slip. Slip and slice. It's not like a slice, but it's similar. Okay, slip. Fossilization and the common error, right? And if you want to know more about their characteristics, I recommend you watch the video. Okay, basically we have those errors, which depend on interference. For example, when your mother language gets inside the when you are speaking in English or in another language, your mother language interferes in this interaction. Okay, we also we're talking about the students that make mistakes because of overgeneralization. Interlanguage, that means that they are creating their own language and they think that they are saying correctly, right? Overgeneralization, that we were talking, that they create their own rules. For example, in the simple past, most of the verbs end with ed, and many students make this mistake that they put in every, they think that they overgenerally say that this rule is for all of the verbs. For example, they say I go it instead of I went, which is irregular. Okay, so this happens a lot, and so on. Okay, very, very nice, Francisco. And we were talking that errors are part of the learning process. If you make a mistake, you can learn from that mistake. Okay, so it's not something bad according to the level. Okay, maybe in basic that there is no much problem, but if you are in a higher level, then you might have a problem, because that means that you need to be more accurate with the language, right? But never mind. And we also saw something about the differences between L1 and L2. Okay, we know that there are many differences, but we were talking um about learning. Remember that in this second part, in module 1 part 2, we're talking about background to learn which learning. Okay, so in this case we're going to focus in learning, what's learning and so on. And here, what how we learn our mother language, our L1, it's totally different from how we learn the L2. Okay, for example, the H, we learn L1 since we are babies, since we are in contact to the language. And L2, it's learned when you are in primary or secondary school, if you have the chance, because not many students have the chance. Okay, so that's the first disadvantage. In L1, you are totally involved since you are born, and in L2 is more for academic stuff. Then we were talking also about context and ways of learning. Okay, it's not the same the way we learn our mother language with the with uh, with the second language. We were talking that in L1 we have lots of exposure, and we learn the mother language because we want to communicate. It's a need. It's not like we decided if yes or not. It's because you need to communicate. And in L2, there is no really good, or there might not be motivation because you don't need to communicate it, not directly. That's what I mean. And exposure is very, very little sometimes. Okay, and you don't really need this language. It's because just for education or job situations, but if you don't speak this, you won't die. Uh-huh. So, and also we were talking about, for example, in L1, we learn it by playing because we have lots of chances. Okay, we don't really think about our grammar. This is like very spontaneous, let's say. And whereas in L2, it's more like, more more reduced because you need to learn a list of words, verbs, but they are limited, as you can see. Okay, it's not the same. And sometimes you can have games, that's cool, in the classroom, but they are not the same as in the L1. Okay, they are just like uh games for 10, 15 minutes, and that's it, and they are only for academic reasons. And there are no many opportunities to learn, and all the activities are corrected. As we were talking about errors, teacher must correct their mistakes. Okay, so Caroline and Francisco, I need to know if you have a question about this topic, because today we're going to do our sample test and we're going to look at another topic today. So about L1 and L2, Caroline, did you watch the video of yesterday class? Have you watched it? Okay, thank you, Francisco. Okay, well, I really recommend it, Caroline, so that you can have a better idea, because I was explaining with more detail every single point. Okay, and maybe you can get good advices and good ideas, not only for the test, but maybe for your real classes too. Okay, so today, before we start with the next topic, we're going to do the sample test. In your case, Caroline, well, try to do your best. Okay, maybe you didn't attend the class, but you have a knowledge about this. Okay, so please do it, try to do it, and I'm sure you are going to do it very, very well. Okay, so now, Francisco and Caroline, this is what you have to do, because those are similar questions that might appear in the real TKT test. Okay, so I'm going to read the instructions and let me know if you have a question. For questions from 1 to 5, choose the best option, A, B, or C, to complete each statement about L1 and L2 learning. Okay, so you just need to underline which completes better this first part. For example, L1 learners, friends, and family, and we have these three options. Okay, so you just need to decide which one will be better, or is the best in this case. So I'm gonna give you 10 minutes to do it, please. And if you finish earlier, that will be nice, because then we can continue. Okay, so 10 minutes, ready to start now. Remember to find all those keywords. You can do this activity in your notebook or here in the chat. That will be nicer, because then we can analyze your answers and compare them. Remember, this is not to criticize you. It's just a matter of analyzing the answers. Okay, go ahead and good luck. Okay, very nice. I see that you are done, Caroline, and you did a very good time, less than 5 minutes. So less than 1 minute per question. Nice. And you didn't attend the class, so that's something good because you could do it without attending the class. So that means you have a knowledge about this. Great. So now I'm just waiting for Francisco's answer, and he has barely 5 minutes. So don't be under pressure, Francisco. Good luck. Analyze the sentences. Okay, I have your answers, Francisco. Very nice. Okay, so I'm going to analyze your answers. You had very similar ones, just two that I can see that there are different. But let's see. I'm gonna give you my point of view, and then we're gonna check the real answers. Okay. So for number one, both of you wrote B. Often reformulate the learner's mistakes. Okay, that means that, for example, when you are with your father, you can say, you can ask them to say the same thing in another one so that they can reformulate the things that they are saying. Okay, you don't correct like directly, right? You say, no, this is like this, but not in a hard way, not like in the school, right? Okay, for you, number two, L1 learners motivation first language, you wrote say A. It's part of the wish to communicate. Well, as I told you, it's the need to communicate. More than a wish, I will say it's a need to communicate. Okay, number three, these you have the same also, letter C. L1 learners long silent period helps them become familiar with language patterns. Yeah, maybe that is true. Remember, we were talking about silent period, okay, in which you information. So that means that you're getting all the information about the language. And for this, you have the same two. Okay, so it's just one that you have different. It's A, they have an analytic learning style. That's why you think that they want to learn in a more formal way. And the last one, this is the one that is a little bit tricky because you, Caroline, wrote A and you, Francisco, wrote C. The L2 learners errors need to be corrected immediately, according to you, Francisco, and according to Caroline, are always very similar to those made by L1 learners. I don't agree, maybe with neither of you, but I will check the answers. I'm not sure. Maybe I can be mistaken. But okay, are always very similar to those made by L1 learners. I don't think so, Caroline, because mm, like you are used to hearing and reading, so you have more exposure to the language. So I don't think they are similar. Okay, uh, because you might have more errors in L2 than in L1. Although there is a point in which, Caroline, maybe you refer that if you have an error in L1, you might have it also in L2. For example, if you don't know the present simple, let's say, that you don't know how to conjugate, you don't know that yo juego, tu juegas is part of the present simple of the indicative, right? So maybe if you have this problem, you don't know what present simple is, maybe it can transfer to the two. That could be possible. I think that you understood in this way. Okay, but now let's analyze Francisco's answer. Need to be corrected immediately. Yes, they need to be corrected, but I don't know if they are, you need to do it immediately. Maybe you need to correct it little by little and explain the student because some of them are very sensible, because maybe they are in an important exposition and you cannot interrupt them. And later on, obviously, you will tell them their mistakes, but you don't make them to correct at the same time. You know what I mean, Francisco? But this is my point of view, okay? I will go more for maybe B, but let's see to Cambridge answers. Here we go. Okay, so number one is B, correct. Number two is A, correct. You both. Number three, C, nice. Number four, A. And finally, as I told you, I didn't go for any of you. I will go more for B. Why? Because I remember, maybe you didn't attend, Caroline, but Francisco, we were talking about fossilization. We were talking that this occurs only in L2 language. And when you, well, not only in L2, but it's more common to see it in L2, in which maybe you make an error that can go since primary to secondary, then to high school, then to university, and it can last for a long, long time or even forever. Okay, so are always very similar. I think that they are similar, but not always. Maybe this is the key word, the tricky word, Caroline. That's why you get confused. Yes, they are similar sometimes, as I was telling you, but not always. And in your case, this is the tricky word, Francisco. Immediately, yes, you need to correct him or her, but not at the moment. You need to wait, maybe, and little by little you start correcting the students, but not at the moment. Maybe. Okay, maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, is that clear? Teachers, do you have a question about this exercise? But you did very well. 4 out of 5. So nice. That means that you are improving. Do you see how you are improving? At the very beginning, with this kind of questions, you had problems, and you, for example, 5, you go 3 right and 2 mistakes, and so on. Uh-huh. Yes, Caroline, you didn't see this keyword always. Really, Francisco? I don't know. Maybe you misunderstood this thing. Uh-huh. Yesterday, my natural teacher should correct. Okay, so maybe there is an important point about this, about correcting mistakes, which I'm going to be checking. But I'm talking about real life, like real exposure about this. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check. We were talking about errors, but now this is because of L2. But let me see if I can find this about errors. Mhm. Hold on a minute. I'm looking for the slides in which we saw about this error. Okay, here I don't see anything, Francisco, about correcting immediately. Ah, the blue chart. Yeah, so this is from L1 and L2. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna look for it. Don't worry, don't worry. Maybe remember, these are the answers from Cambridge, and I always base myself on Cambridge. I'm not saying what I think. I'm just giving my opinion, but in the end, those are Cambridge answers. Okay, so let's see, let's see. Maybe you are right. Okay, let me see, Francisco, if you can see about the mistake. I'm going to have a scanning. Boop, very quickly. Here it is, and here it is, and okay, here it says something about correct. Like here, teachers often correct learners. They might or may not given opportunities to make mistakes or experiment. And this is the last one, Francisco. Okay, so maybe I said that. Maybe you were mistaken because maybe I said that they need to correct, and maybe I said immediately, but I was mistaken. Maybe I mean like, and everything can happen, right? Uh, we are not gods, let's say. But no, Francisco, I want to make this clear, okay? If it was my mistake, I'm sorry, but no, not immediately. Yes, for sure, teachers have to correct. That's our job. Okay, but no, maybe not immediately. Maybe we should wait a little bit. That depends on the situation and the kind of the student. So sorry, Francisco, but now the good point is that you learned, and that's I'm very happy for that, right? Are we okay, Francisco? Okay, very nice. Very nice. I don't know who made the mistake. Maybe I was. I will check the videos and I will apologize formally if I did. Okay, now, so these are the answers. So far, so good with this L1, L2, Francisco and Caroline. No problems. Caroline, I need to know, did you read about the document that I sent in Edmodo about learning styles? Did you have the chance to read it, Caroline? Okay, very good. So try to read it, please. So this is about our new topic. Okay, we're going to start a new topic today. Okay, which is called, remember this all, we continue with the learning. And today we're going to be talking about learner characteristics. Okay, what is learner characteristics? Okay, so before I can start with the class, I want you to pay attention. I'm going to record a video. Okay, and I want you to tell me at the end, just pay attention to the video and let me know at the end, what are the most surprising things that you heard. What if this is similar to what you read or not, and so on. Okay, or what you know about language, learners characteristics. Okay, so let's watch the video, and later on I want to listen, or well, in this case read your comments. Here we go.
For training to be successful, learners must be ready and able to learn. Learner readiness means that individuals have the ability to learn, have the motivation to learn, have high confidence, see the value in learning, and have a learning style that fits the training. Learners must possess basic skills, such as fundamental reading or math proficiency, and sufficient cognitive abilities. Organizations may discover that some workers lack the cognitive ability to comprehend their training. Some have found that a significant number of job applicants and current employees lack the reading, writing, and math skills needed to learn on the job. Employers might deal with the lack of basic employee skills in several ways. First, offer remedial training to existing employees who need it. Second, test and hire workers who already have those necessary skills, or work with local schools to help provide better education for potential hires for jobs. A person's desire to learn training content, referred to as motivation to learn, is influenced by multiple factors. Learners must possess self-efficacy, which refers to people's belief that they can successfully learn the training program content. For learners to be ready for and receptive to training content, they must believe that it's possible for them to learn the material. Training that's viewed as useful is more likely to be used on the job. Perceived utility or value of training is affected by a need to improve, the likelihood that training will lead to improvement, and the practicality of training for use on the job. For training to be used on the job, learners must perceive a close relationship between the training and the things they want in their work performance. Effective learning requires the application of 3 learning styles in training. Auditory learners learn best by listening to someone else tell them about training content. Visual learners think in pictures and figures. They need to see the purpose and process for the training. And finally, tactile learners must get their hands on the training resources and use them. Trainers who address all of these styles by using multiple training methods can present more effective training. In addition, training design must sometimes address special issues presented by adult learning, which involves the way in which adults learn differently than do younger people. Certainly, the training design considers that all the trainees are adults, but adults come with widely varying learning styles, experiences, and personal goals. There are 5 principles for designing training for adults who need to know why they're learning something, need to be self-directed, bring more work-related experiences into the learning process, enter into a learning experience with a problem-centered approach to learning, and are motivated to learn by both extrinsic and intrinsic factors. The success of training efforts depends on understanding and adapting training to the needs of a learner.
Okay, very nice. So tell me, teachers, um, what did you understand about the video, or what were the most important parts or aspects about the video? Please tell me what thing or sort of thing caught more your attention. Very good. And indeed, Francisco, today we're going to be talking a lot about age, but especially adults. Okay, maybe I know that you are a teacher of children, you are children's teachers, but in this case, we're going to focus a lot of on adults because children can adapt easily to your way of teaching. For example, but it's not the same with adults because they got a little bit of more experience. So we're going to talk about that. That's why I chose this video. Uh-huh. And but very good, yes, right. So we need to adapt. They don't need to adapt ourselves. You need to adapt to themselves. Uh-huh. We have different types of learning styles, that's for sure. Okay. And Francisco, in the reading that I gave you, Caroline, there is a quiz. There is a small quiz in which you can see what is your learning style. Do you know what's your learning style, Caroline? Do you know what your learning style is, Caroline? Because Francisco and I, we are visual. We saw that we are totally visual and we are a little bit tactive and kinesthetic. What about you, Caroline? Do you know what kind of a style of learning do you have? Okay, maybe Carol doesn't know. Right? Don't you know, Carol, what kind of style you are or you have? Okay, maybe you don't, right, Carol? Don't worry, don't worry. Maybe you can do the quiz later on. After you read, you can do the quiz. Okay, very nice. So I will continue. Okay, so learner characteristics. This is a very, very important topic, and you might have many questions about this. So I want you to be awareness of this. Learner characteristics include motivation. I heard that in the video. Learning styles. Two, learning strategies, mentoring, and past language experiences. Okay, very nice. Which depend on factors that influence learners' attitude toward language. Okay, so you need to learn about these five, six aspects: motivation, learning styles, learning strategies, okay, maturity, and past language experiences. They are five, sorry, they are five only. Okay, and we're going to be talking about those little by little. Okay, we have already talked about motivation. Can you remind me, please, Francisco or Caroline? about can you remind me about motivation? What are the two types of motivation that a student have? Intrinsical and extrinsical, intrinsic or extrinsic. Okay, remember, intrinsic are the things, the reasons why they want to learn English or another language, and extrinsic is from the exterior, right? So excellent. So today we're going to focus in the other four, not motivation, because we have talked a lot, we have talked about that a lot. So we're going to focus in the other four: learning styles, learning strategies, mentoring, and past language experiences. Okay. Now, first, learning styles. These are the ways in which a learner naturally prefers to take in, process, and remember information and skills. So this is basically the way that they have to learn. Okay, so I was asking you, Caroline, what is your style? Because Francisco and I, we are visual. We learn more by looking at things. Okay, so Francisco and I, we're visual. I want to know, Caroline, what kind of a style do you think you have? So I'm going to read what the styles are, and let me know, Caroline, what of this style do you think you have? Okay, so let's see. Visual. Well, the learner learns best through watching and looking with the eyes. Okay, or the learner learns best through listening and hearing. Okay, auditory. In this case, I have many students like that, and I'm very surprised whenever I ask something and I see that they are not paying attention to me, but I ask them and they answer. That's how I realize that they are auditory, because even though they are not paying attention to me or to what I'm writing, they are listening and they are paying attention and they are learning by their ears. So that's something good, right? Kinesthetic, the learner learns best through being physical while moving or touching things. So in this case, we need to move or do things in different way. Okay, this has to do with touching or see. Kinesthetic and touching or tactic, they are similar. Okay, group, the learner learns best through working with others. Well, so we all know how to work in groups, right? Okay, individual. The learner learns best working alone. We have those students that say, no, teacher, I want to work alone. But you say, no, that's impossible. You need to work with another person. But they don't feel comfortable with them, right? Reflect, the learner that's when given time to consider choices. So as you can see, most of the activities, I want you to develop this reflective style, because I want you to check out the sentences, to analyze, and then to choose. And that's how it is in the real exam too, or most exams. So you need to be very reflective. Maybe this is not the way you learn, but that's how it should be, because we are in an online course, right? Impulsive, the learners learn best when able to respond immediately. In this case, no, because it's an exam, so you need to take your time and consider and see the points and so on, right? Analytic, the learner learns best when given the opportunity to analyze things. Okay, so in this case, this course is kind of reflective and analytic. And autonomous, it is also autonomous. The learner learns like to decide what he or she learns and how to learn. So I upload the videos, but it's your decision to watch them or not. I upload the quizzes, but in the end, it's your decision to do them or not. Okay, so in this case, talking about this course, this online course, we are working a lot with reflective, analytic, and autonomous. Okay, somehow visual also, because I put like these videos and so on, and auditory, but it's more about reflective, analytic, and autonomous, to be honest. Okay, very nice. Now, students may not fall exactly, okay, into one category of learning style, and they might have several styles. Okay, so from these ones, very quickly. Oh, Caroline, I think she has some problems with her connection. But tell me, Francisco, meanwhile, what of these styles do you think you have, apart from the quiz that you did? Okay, apart from visual, apart from kinesthetic, some of these, from group to autonomous, are not in the quiz. So tell me which you have, like with the highest and with the lowest. Just two, the highest and the lowest. Tell me, Francisco. Apart from visual, apart from visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, from group to autonomous, tell me one of these is the highest and one of the which one of these is the lowest. I think in my case the highest is analytic, but the lowest is individual. I don't like to work alone, but I don't know. That's for me. What about you, Francisco? Very good. So the highest is autonomous and the lowest is impulsive. Okay, maybe I will consider also impulsive in my case. I don't like to respond immediately. I want to take my time, analyze, and so on. Very nice, Francisco. Okay, very nice. So maybe you have also, apart from visual, maybe you have these other styles. Okay, so learn them, please. If you have a notebook, remember to write them. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, group, individual, reflective, impulsive, analytic, and autonomous. Okay, very nice. So we might continue. Now, there are also learning strategies which are not the same as the learning style. The style is the way, and the strategy, let's see, that is the process you are going to be taking during the whole course. Okay, so learn is five ways to help themselves to identify what they need to learn, process, remember, and use language, etc. Without depending directly on the teacher. So sometimes they don't depend on us, they depend on themselves, the way they learn. So, for example, by repeating new words in your head until you remember them. So, there are many students that they know or they catch a new word and they start repeating. And this is maybe useful for them. And every single moment they are repeating and repeating. Or, for example, experimenting, taking risks by using just learned language in conversations. Okay, so maybe they like role plays. And they say, no, let's make a conversation. The teacher told us to make a project. So why not to make a conversation with this context? And they start developing it, right? The next one, asking the teacher or others to give you feedback on the language you use. There are many students that say, teacher, can you explain us once again? I have understood the topic, but I just want you to summarize what we heard or what we learned. So you as a teacher, you need to re-explain and give them the good or bad points of a topic and so on. Okay, deciding to use the foreign language as much as possible by talking to tourists, for example. So they decide if they want to learn it or they want to use the language or not. Okay, so this doesn't really depend on us. We make the practice, but in the classroom, but outside, that depends on them. Okay, for example, another is recording yourself speaking and judging and correcting your pronunciation. Okay, not many students do this, they are kind of shame, but we as teacher, this is very good, right? Because we can listen to ourselves and see, no, I am making this mistake a lot of times, so I'm going to try to correct it. uh Asking a speaker to repeat what he or she has said. Okay, so just repeat one more time. Deciding what area or vocabulary you need to learn and then learn it. Okay, so for example, there are many students that say, teacher, today I want to learn about phrasal verbs. And now I want you to teach us about vocabulary with animals, especially if they are children, right? Those basic with pictures and so on. Okay, thinking about how to memorize, remember all the new words you meet in each lesson. Okay, so that depends on them. Okay, how they can remember. Maybe they are studying one day before, or maybe at the moment they are repeating the words as in the first one, right, in the head and so on. Okay, and sometimes they also select which of these words are useful and which ones are not, or are not that useful, right? Deciding to write each new vocabulary item on a separate card and display it on your fridge. For example, as I was telling you, Francisco, at the beginning, I used to play like all these verbs on the wall in my room, and then I memorized them. I practiced them every single time. I sticked about 5 verbs, and later on and so on, I was remembering them. That was my strategy. And finally, paraphrasing, that we have already talked, that says saying what the other people say or what you want to say, but with different words. Okay, so we have different strategies. So tell me, for example, Francisco, in your case, what's your strategy in this course? How do you do in order to remember a lot of concepts? We know that in this course we are having a lot of concepts: intrinsic, extrinsic, scanning, skimming, phonology, phoneme. Okay, so there are many concepts because this is theory. So tell me, Francisco, because I'm surprised in your test, and I am surprised that you remember many concepts. So what's your strategy? How do you do to practice, or to I don't know, to remember them when I ask you? For example, the one of a slice, you say a slice instead of a sleep, but you, I don't know, what was your strategy? I don't know. Maybe. Very good, mind maps. So do you really write them on your notebook, or in your head only, in your mind? On my PC. I'm sorry. You you are fancier, right? Okay, very nice, Francisco. I was thinking on your notebook, like in the school, in the secondary. But that's okay, Francisco. Very nice. Very nice, Francisco. So in my case, for example, I relate the words. For example, this word sleep, it's a minimal pair, which is similar to sleep. So what I do is to relate these words so that I can remember, oh, this is similar to sleep. So that's what I do with this kind of concepts. Or I look to the description and I connect the description with the word. Just a keyword, for example, scanning fast. You see, that's how I remember these words. Mhm. Very good. Excellent, Francisco. Yes, we need to adapt, right? Doesn't matter what kind of resource. Okay, so we're almost done. So I'm going to continue, Francisco. So involves okay, maturing. Okay, involves becoming grown physically, mentally, and emotionally. Here are some examples of maturing that influence language learning. Okay, as you know, when we talk about, when we say that person is not that mature, then we have like kind of different opinions and so on. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about increase little by little. You are not going to learn the same when you are a child than when you are an adult. That's why the video told us, right? Because adults have like a background, they got some experience before, for example. Okay, so I have here a small chart, Francisco, which I want we analyze very quickly. Okay, for example, for children, they need to move. You know that they are very kinesthetic, right? Whereas teenagers can start to keeping still for longer periods, but still need to move. Okay, you also need to move with them, but also you need to teach them to stay still, right? Not moving. And adults are able to keep still for longer periods, just like us, right, Francisco? We are not moving that much. Maybe we are sat here in front of the computer. I am speaking and so on. Okay. Now, for example, children can concentrate for shorter periods, just short attention. Whenever you catch your students' attention, there is a moment just go ahead in that moment, because maybe the concentration won't back again. Okay, concentration developing. In this case, you need to work with them because they are not, it's not easy for them to concentrate either. And for example, adults can concentrate for long periods. Okay, children learn through experience and doing. Okay, if you do the things at the moment, they will look at you and they will remember. And for teenagers, it's more like you can start teaching them as abstract things, for example, through thinking, analyzing, experimenting, but by themselves. Okay, and finally, can class in more abstract ways, so you can teach more difficult concepts to adults, like this one, like skinning, scanning, and so on. Okay, for children are not very able to control and plan their own behavior. This is a very problem with when talking about behavior, right? About classroom management. We're going to talk about classroom management later on. Okay, for example, beginning to control and plan their own behavior. So teenagers are like in the middle. They decide if they want to behave well or behave bad, right? And adults, wait, we don't need to deal that much with them because they can control themselves. Okay, children, they are not afraid of making mistakes. They take their risks. They are playing. They don't care. Teenagers might be worried about their classmate, right? And adults, sometimes it's not because they are afraid, it's because they just don't want to, and they don't want to make mistakes, because you might say, oh, they are adults, how is that come that they don't make mistakes, or that they make mistakes, and so on. So they are a little bit more criticized. Okay, children, for example, are not aware of themselves and their actions. They just even know what English is, right? Okay, but for example, in teenagers, they are uncomfortably aware of themselves or and the action. So one more time, they are like in the middle. They might care, they might not care. Okay, and adults, they are aware of themselves. They are more maturing, developed, let's say. Pay attention to meaning in language, so they like to know about the meanings. They are always asking, and what is this, how do you say this in English, how do you say that in English? Okay, and also in for teenagers, but now they don't only care about vocabulary, they also want to know about form. So teacher, how can I say this expression in English? So with long sentences. And in case of adults, they pay to the form, also in the language, but on the vocabulary, but maybe less. Okay, children have limited experience of life, so that means you are not going to get much information from them, maybe. Okay, and in teenagers, they are starting increasing, right? And adults, they have a lots of experience. Okay, and children, they are still developing their cognitive skills, so maybe they are not very prepared. Some of them don't even know how to write, right? So they are still writing, they are still learning how to read, and so on. And teenagers, it's supposed that the cognitive skills are already developed, but around age 15, right? And in adults, there is no problems with this. And finally, the motivation for children is just to communicate and learn. That's it. In teenagers, for example, it can you can have different kind of motivations, right? Not only for communicating, also for maybe for their school, for the university, or something like that. And adults, it's more conscious and controlled. So adults now they know perfectly why they want to learn a language, right? Okay, Yadira, hello, how are you? You are very late, Yadira, but I'm happy to see you here in the chat. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the very last part of the. Now, don't worry, Yadira. You can watch the video later on. Okay, we are almost over. This is the last topic. Okay, and the last topic of today, of course. And then you're going to have a small homework, and that's it. Okay, so now let's continue. Past language learning experience. This is especially for adults, and we need to pay lots of attention because most of the TKT about this is related to adults. Okay, an adult may have learned English at the school through learning lots of grammar and may have been successful in learning in the way. However, another adult may have learned by using translation at the school and then come to class in which translation is never used. He may not like the change. Okay, so in this case, we were talking like if we should adapt to themselves or they need to adapt to ourselves. In this case, the answer is we as teachers, we need to adapt the way they want to learn because they are adults. We don't need to work that much with them, not with classroom management or something like that. So if an adult asks you to do some translation and this is useful, I mean, I'm talking about usefulness. If you think that this is useful for them, then use it. Okay, or you can vary the activities, sometimes translation, sometimes grammar, but you need to focus on their learning experience. You need to know, you need to investigate the way they used to learn. Okay, so for example, teachers need to be aware of how their learners have learned previously and how they want to learn now. The learners might welcome a change in method, but they may want to learn in the same way as they learned before. So okay, so at the very beginning, if whenever you have an adult class, you need to ask them the very first class, okay, what do you want? Okay, what do you expect to learn in this course? Okay, so that they can start thinking and saying, okay, I want to learn vocabulary, but it's difficult for me. So maybe your strategy is, or your method is going to use translations sometimes. Okay, or the other person says, no, I want to speak. So then in this case, maybe you will speak most of the time in English because the adult wants to speak English and so on. But you are going to do that little by little, but you need to be awareness of their learning experience. Okay. Very nice, Francisco. Yadira, I know that you are kind of late, but let me just summarize very quickly. We need this unit is about learner characteristics. There are five: motivation, which we have already talked, learning styles, that is this one, okay, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Here we have a description of all of them. So later on, have a look at them. And learning strategies. So the same as the way. The strategies are the activities they are continuously doing so that they can start learning. Okay, some of them practice, for example, with repetition, other with feedback, other people with games, and so on. Okay, that's the strategy. Measuring, we were talking that is the way, it's not the same how children, teenagers, and adults learn, right? So according to their age, they have different ways of learning. Okay, and finally, past language learning experience. We need to take into consideration that they have a past and they learned maybe in a way but also in another way. And if you change the method, might be likely to be successful or not. Okay, so that's the thing. Questions or problems, Francisco, Yadira, about this topic, about this learners characteristics? Thank you, Yadira. Yes, I know you do. Yadira, I remember that you asked me to upload the quiz in Edmodo. So I want to know if you have already answered it because it will be over today at 11 p.m. So if you haven't, please. Okay, thank you, Yadira. I haven't checked, but I will. And today I'm going to be uploading the new quiz. You will have one more time a complete week to answer it. Okay? Very nice. So now the homework. It's going to be very quickly, and I'm going to send this homework maybe in WhatsApp or in Edmodo. So I'm going to let you know in WhatsApp, okay? This is an extra practice. Look at the statements and write the correct learning style. So here we have this visual, reflective, and so on. And you have here the options. Okay, so one of them might have one or might have two of these or three maybe two or three learning style. Okay, but you need to decide which one. For example, giving learning lots of thinking time to answer questions. There might be only one, or there might be two, maybe. Okay, so, and this is the only homework. Okay, yes, Francisco and Yadira, no problems with the homework. I'm going to be uploading it in Edmodo, maybe. Very nice. Okay, so remember to answer the quiz. I'm going to be uploading it like in 1 hour, more or less. It will have already been there by this time in an hour. And well, do the quiz, do your best, and next class we will continue talking about other interesting topics about learning. Okay, so have an excellent night and have an excellent weekend too. Thank you for this lovely class and see you next.